In this video, we review the second half of the chronological order, and this takes us into season 3. This is pretty straightforward. We'll try to sum this up quickly and tell you what episodes you must watch in order to prepare for season 7. So stick around as we review the Night Sister arc and the Mortis arc, which we all know is good. So in the second half, we start with the Night Sisters. And with that, I'm going to hand you off to Santa, and he'll take you through the first 3 episodes of the second half of the season. Take it away, Santa.
This is the second half of our season 3 review. So we're going to start off with a 3-part episode on the Night Sisters. So that's actually the name of the first one, but it kind of covers the arc of all 3 as well. So it starts with season 3, episode 12, titled Night Sisters. And then we have episodes 13 and 14 that follow that. So episode 13 is Monster, and episode 14 is Witches of the Mist. So season 3, 12, 13, and 14, Night Sisters. This episode opens with the Republic and the Separatists are fighting in the solar system, and Asajj Ventress is leading up that charge. During that attack, Palpatine contacts Dooku and tells Dooku that he senses that Asajj has become more powerful than he's comfortable with. And to show Dooku's loyalty, Palpatine demands that he eliminate Asajj. He wants Asajj killed as a proof of loyalty to Dooku, because with the whole rule of 2 thing, and it's common within the Sith for the apprentice, if you will, to have an underling of their own, raise them to power, overtake the master, become the master themselves, and that cycle to repeat. So this constant cycle of the Sith Lord being replaced by the Sith apprentice through murder. That's typically the way it goes. And so Palpatine has sensed that Dooku's assistants become too powerful. Now he's thinking that Dooku may get in his head, that he wants to take over and off Palpatine himself. So in order to cut it off, he asked Dooku to kill or have Asajj eliminated. And I think it's interesting, in this episode, there's a couple of references that kind of get some inspiration from the Bible. Here, at first, it ties with Bathsheba's husband. If you remember in the Bible, Uriah the Hittite, David and Goliath fame, right? David asks his forces, in order to get rid of Uriah the Hittite, they send him into battle, puts Uriah on the front line, sends him out, has the troops withdraw, leaving Uriah defenseless in the very front lines. And that's it, and Uriah ends up getting killed. What happens here is Dooku does essentially the same thing. Asajj is out with the troops in the heat of battle. Dooku orders that the troops withdraw, leaving Asajj undefended on her own out there. And so he does that. However, it's unsuccessful. Ventress ends up getting away, and she runs back to her home world, and that's where Dathomir. She goes back to Dathomir. That's where the Night Sisters live, and that's where we meet Mother Talzin. She's the matriarch of those people, and Mother Talzin's a very powerful witch. She has a lot of magic they keep talking about. So it's very, very powerful. She's very strong, and she brings Asajj back. She heals her using, again, a biblical reference here, the water of life. So this comes, again, it's a biblical term that we read at the end of days. new heaven, new earth, the tree of life. Out of the tree of life will flow a river with the water of life. So this is where this, again, this water of life reminded me of the biblical story. So interesting that in one episode we kind of get two biblical references, or at least inspirations from the Bible. And then, of course, Asajj is brought back to strength. And through that process, she goes through some memories, and we learn some backstory of Asajj here that's very good. Asajj was kind of traded away as an infant in order to protect the clan or the planet, whatever. And Asajj goes off, and when she is just still very young, there's a battle that takes place, and the guy who kind of owns her is killed, and the Jedi come by and rescue her. Through that, she sees the Jedi in a very favorable light, and she begins to train with the Jedi. So she shows her force sensitivity. She gets their attention. They take her under their wing, and she's training with a Jedi. And again, later, that Jedi is killed, and she wants to seek vengeance on those who killed her Jedi Master. This kind of gets Dooku's attention. We got to remember that back in the day, Dooku was a Jedi Knight. So Dooku kind of gets the attention of Asajj, or she gets his attention, and he starts to train her, and that's how she ends up training with Dooku, and he's kind of playing into her power and into this concept of revenge. And that's sort of at the top of the episode. It says the swiftest path to destruction is through vengeance, and that's Asajj's motivation. We learn that that's her motivation through this. She's always seeking out vengeance or revenge on people who have harmed her family, done something that she sees as being against her, causing her harm. So that the episode kind of ends with the Night Sisters are kind of made like shadows. They carry regular Jedi lightsabers, so that, not red ones, but like green and blue, so that as ghosts, so to speak, they go to visit Dooku and fight him. I found it interesting here that we have two Night Sister warriors, along with Asajj, who are battling perhaps one of the greatest, at least Dooku was known for his combat skills with a lightsaber. All three of them are combating Dooku and his lightsaber in a lightsaber duel. So there's four of them involved there, 3 against 1. They end up kind of overpowering Dooku, but he uses Force Lightning to throw them off, and they end up leaving. So it kind of ends with that. The plan was all along to get Dooku thinking that he had been attacked by the Jedi, and that he would reach back to Mother Talzin for somebody to replace Asajj, because he assumes that Ventress is dead. So it sort of ends with Talzin reaching out to Dooku and saying, we have some male warriors here of the same race of that you had in Maul, Darth Maul. So she says, I can give you another like Maul that you can train up, and he can be your warrior. And he takes her up on that offer. So that leads us into episode 13, Monster. With this, Dooku arrives on Dathomir to meet Mother Talzin. And through their discussion, we learn that Talzin was once helped by Dooku, and she's offering to reciprocate the favor to make it even into their relationship. She wants nothing to do with him. She says, I hope that we can end our relationship and I never have to meet you again. And Dooku agrees to take a male assassin, the same race as Maul. And Talzin plans to use her magic to set up that assassin as a sleeper agent for her. So once that assassin has been trained up, he's gained Dooku's faith, then she would awaken him and turn him against Dooku to have Dooku killed. So through this, then Asajj ends up trying to pick out the warrior that they're going to assign to Dooku. Dooku's out of the picture at this point. He still thinks Asajj is dead. Asajj goes to the other side of the planet where the male species live, and she then begins this weeding out process. And it gets down to these two brothers in a final battle against one another, and they sort of refuse to kill one another. One of the brothers steps up and says, "Hey, uh, I'll give my life. I'll volunteer just to save my brother." And Asajj seems to take him up on that. They put him through the kind of transformation process. Towson takes him, has him transformed into a much stronger, more brutal, savage fighter, assassin. And and here again, it's a literary device that's used quite a bit. The savage fighter, his name is Savage, and spelled savage. So Savage is this assassin that Towson then has kind of transformed into this brutal killer. And at the end, to prove his loyalty, they have him kill the brother that he had volunteered to defend his life. So Savage ends up taking his brother's life, and then they turn him over to Dooku. Dooku, as a proof of his training, power, sends Savage to a Jedi temple, and he wants to overtake the temple. Savage goes in and wipes everybody out easily, and that's impressive to Dooku, and he seems happy with having Savage as his protege, if you will. Then that leads into the final part of this three-parter, Witches of the Mist, and Dooku begins training Savage lightsaber skills at this point, and you see Dooku is very brutal in his methods. I did like that in one of the scenes as he's training Savage, he ends up with two lightsabers, crosses them in front of Savage's neck, just as Anakin crossed the lightsabers in front of Dooku's neck when he beheaded him. So when we get that famous line from Palpatine, say, "Do it." And then Anakin cuts off Dooku's head, of course. So here Dooku is training Savage, gets Savage in that same position, and then turns off the lightsabers, saying he's got a lot to learn. So during this, Anakin and Obi-Wan go to Dathomir to try to figure out what's going on here. And there's another funny scene because Obi-Wan sort of has this comic sense of humor to him. And as he's talking to Mother Talzin, she's got warriors lined up behind him with bows drawn at his head, right at the back of his head. And Obi-Wan thanks Talzin for her hospitality. Your hospitality is, wonderful. But he's got these bows and arrows drawn at him. So I found that humorous. And Savage, we switch back to Savage. He's on a mission for Dooku. He goes to the Toydarian, and he's supposed to capture the Toydarian and bring him back, but instead Savage kills the Toydarian, brings back his body. That ticks Dooku off, and Dooku then does sort of the same thing to Savage as he did to Asajj, right? So Savage is then the droids turn on Savage and start firing on him. Savage takes damage and is injured, returns back to Dathomir with Mother Talzin. She restores him and sends him then to a brother that he doesn't know exists. This brother, then we learn, is actually Maul. Maul isn't dead. And that's sort of where it ends. We see Maul's face in this mist that Talzin is bringing up to show Savage where she's sending him. And that ends this three-parter. So I'll turn it over to a Magic Maker. He'll take on the next part, and I'll be...
So the next 3 episodes are the infamous Mortis arc. And I think this is some of the biggest lore building, best season of the season 3, and probably part among the best of the Clone Wars in all actuality. In this arc of 3 episodes, Ahsoka, Anakin, and Obi-Wan answer a distress call from unknown space from a 2,000-year-old Jedi signal. Upon arriving there, they discover this double pyramid monolith floating in space. Their controls go dead, the monolith splits open in 2, and they're sucked in via tractor beam or something. The Force takes a hold of them and pulls them in, where they find they've crashed, and then discover an entire world inside this monolith. Now, these episodes will make you question everything you think you know about the Force, and some of these things seem contradictory, so it would take a really deep dive, word by word, word for word, to break this apart, because there are some things that are said in this that really do need to be analyzed. But I do not intend to do that right here. What we discover is that, of course, Anakin is the chosen one, but he is questioning it and does not believe it. He's forced to deal with that idea that he's the chosen one by these 3 beings called the Ones. These Ones are ancient Force entities. They appear to be the light side, the dark side, and the middle, known as the Father, the Son, and the Daughter. The Daughter is the light side, the Son appears to be the dark side, and the Father is the middle. We discover that the Father is dying, and the Father needs Anakin to take his place to keep this world in balance and to keep both his daughter and son in check. And we learn that about too much dark side and too much light side, and it seems a bit confusing, and one of these things that I really want to delve into. I really need to pick apart some of these statements, but this is a really good episode. In the next episode, the Altar of Mortis, we are introduced to the Dagger of Mortis. So as they're trying to leave, the Son kidnaps Ahsoka and then changes her to the dark side through a spell. And this forces Anakin to fight her and Obi-Wan to take steps to go to the sister to figure out how to defeat the Son. The sister then reveals the Dagger of Mortis to Obi-Wan, who takes it, and then they go over to try to, with Anakin, Obi-Wan try to free Ahsoka. She ends up fighting them both. And we have this confrontation between the sister and the son, and it's actually pretty cool. I mean, to see their abilities, and she tells him he doesn't have to do this. One of the things she says that's really interesting is that it's in her nature. She is selfless, and his nature is selfish. So it's one of the things that they contrast here, and it seems like that would be pretty simple and easy, light side, dark side. But for some reason, it feels and seems like something more. But anyway, the son uses Ahsoka to get a hold of the dagger so that he can kill the father. As he attempts to do that, the daughter or the sister runs in front of him, and he ends up killing his sister. In his anger, the son leaves, leaving the dying daughter and the dead Ahsoka. And Anakin and Obi-Wan are distraught, and we see Anakin do something pretty cool through the father's guidance, as the daughter agrees to relinquish her life, and Anakin transfers the life from the daughter into Ahsoka, and Ahsoka lives. In the final episode of this arc, The Ghost of Mortis, Anakin goes to the father to try to get his blessing to leave. Because he feels he's leaving this world in turmoil with the death of the daughter, he needs to find out whether the father wants him to help finally defeat the son. The father tells him it's not his place to do that anymore, that things have changed, that he'll have to see those answers for himself. On his path, he meets Qui-Gon, and Qui-Gon sends him into the dark side well, which of course is where he meets the son again. So here we see Anakin attempt to fight the son, and one of the things that I think is really cool is that we see that they can deflect the lightsabers with their hands, so they're unaffected to some degree by the lightsabers. Just thought that was a really interesting thing that we get to see. But what was really cool in this is that Anakin has his future revealed to him, and he sees all the horrible things he's going to do, and the son convinces him to help him in order to avoid doing that and bring peace to the galaxy. Yet Anakin still goes to the dark side, and he sees that it's the Jedi that are keeping the galaxy from peace. However, when Anakin returns back to the ship and Ahsoka escapes from him, he is confronted by the Father, and the Father makes him forget those memories, and he returns back to the same old Anakin as before. After Anakin is returned to his former self, Obi-Wan and Ahsoka and Anakin and the Father are all there when the Son arrives, and they all together face the Son. And in that combat, the Father gets the dagger, and the Son accuses the Father of getting ready to kill him, but instead the Father kills himself with the dagger, and he states that the force of the Son runs through him, his power runs through the Father. And the Son is like, why did you do that? Why? I'm undone. And then as soon as he says that, Anakin stabs him through with the lightsaber and kills the Son and the Father alike. In the parting words, the Father warns Anakin to beware his heart. The only thing I thought was really odd about this was that the Son was attempting to kill the Father in the previous episode, and now when the Father kills himself, it weakens the Son, and I didn't really understand that. It seems to contradict itself, so I don't really understand why this matters, because he was trying to hurry his death along in the first episode, and the next one he's going to use the dagger to kill him, and then this one the Father kills himself, and it weakens the Son. It didn't seem like those two things go together, so that didn't really make a lot of sense to me. But other than that, these episodes were amazing and just seem to have so much lore layered inside them and really requires a deeper dive. Highly recommend them. Would love to discuss them at a later time. Alright, if you like that, like and subscribe and follow the end screen over to Santa's channel, and we'll finish off the second half of Season 3.